I find so many similarities between being a racing driver and a CEO. Engineers are telling you what you need to do. You need to have a tremendous amount of trust.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Next, the podcast about the people
and trends
that are shaping the future of business. I'm Diane Brady.
And I'm Kristen Stoller.
This week, Kristen, we have a treat for me, the Formula One fan, Zak Brown, CEO of McLaren Racing.
Yes, Zak has been on this incredible turnaround story. I mean, they won last year for the first time in 26 years.
And they've just won again, twice in a row. Now, we spoke to Zak before they secured their second. It's called the Formula One Constructors Championship title, which is incredible. But he knew it was coming. They've had a banner year. And this is not only the team to watch, but they have incredible personalities. And Zak himself, I think, is somebody who's seen to be a great leader. So he just came out with a book as well.
He did. It is 0.7 of a second, which, Diane, you learned what that is. Please share.
It's the difference, essentially, between success and failure.
And that's, I think, how he leads his teams. He's one of the rare U.S. CEOs. He came in, said the culture at McLaren Racing was just very toxic, instituted a no-blame culture, which I think is a really good call. And he has such interesting stories.
He's got Hollywood stories. He's got stories about managing these personalities. And he's got a lot of thoughts about the future of the sport itself, which I think is fascinating.
And I got to toss in my little favorite spoiler, which is that before we did this interview, our executive producer on the video team, Lydia Randall, told us to ask about his tattoos. And I think everyone should stay tuned, see if we get a tattoo, see if he got another tattoo. We'll see.
And some of those good celeb stories. There's lots more to come. We'll be right back after the break. As technology and AI continue to reshape industries, hiring for technical skills remains important. But fostering creativity, curiosity, and empathy are also essential for organizations to remain competitive and resilient. We're here with Jason Gerzadis, the CEO of Deloitte US and the sponsor of this podcast. Jason, always good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Diane.
So, Jason, how can organizations balance the development of human skills and technical skills to drive innovation?
It is a tech-driven world, but still human skills matter. And I think it comes down to being intentional for leading organizations to still invest and have very directed strategies around building human skills. It's curiosity, imagination, how to team. These are still critical ingredients to creating differentiation and competitive advantage. At Deloitte, we've committed to building those skills and have over time evolved our programming.
Jason, could you say at Deloitte, what role really does apprenticeship play in fostering a culture of continuous learning and development?
It's interesting. There was some, I think, time when people thought that apprenticeship and mentorship could maybe be digitized or entirely done remotely. And I think what we've learned is that that's not the case. That apprenticeship and mentorship need to continue to be a formal part of our culture, a part of our learning environment.
Absolutely. Well, great insights, Jason. Thank you so much for sharing them with us.
Well, Zak, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so I'm going to dive right in. So when you took over at McLaren, the team was underperforming both financially and on the track. What would you say was the single riskiest decision that you made that absolutely could have failed that you think was responsible for the turnaround?
Ooh, good question. Ultimately, people. So I guess I could have picked the wrong people, but I picked the right people.
Didn't. Yeah.
I know I got the right people. We've got great people at McLaren. I think, as you mentioned, when I started, we were at the back of the pack. We were losing tons of money, and employee morale was down. Other than that, everything was great. And but what we did have great was a great brand. And even though it was totally underperforming, it's a brand that it's like the New York Yankees, or pick a sport where people are still attracted to the historic nature of the team. So I knew I had that to work with, and I also knew we had a lot of great people that were just underperforming as a team. So changed all my leadership team, kind of one at a time. Some were internal promotions, some were some people I'd worked with before, other were strangers that we had hunted, and got the right mix of people that push each other very hard, very transparent, very collaborative, but very challenging. There's no kind of yes people on on the team, and ultimately got the momentum reversed, got everyone working well together, being great in their respective lines of business, and now we're kind of firing on all cylinders, to use a racing pun.
There you go. As many racing puns as we can get into this
Well,
podcast.
Exactly.
Let's do it.
You know, having written books myself, I feel it's important to promote every book and promote reading. So 7/10 of a Second, the book that you've just written that's coming out soon. Talk a little bit about why now you wanted to write a book. That experience was like.
I'm not sure I can answer that question because I'm not sure why I did it. No, I was approached, so it wasn't something that I was kind of necessarily seeked out. But I thought actually we've got some pretty cool stories over the years that I think should be hopefully entertaining for people to read, and all about kind of leadership, but what, starting off at a very young age at school to where we are today, everything I've kind of learned.
Valley Boy. No, look, I think there's so much, and we'll get into it. You've got some great people, from Gene Simmons to Jackie Stewart, Bernie Ecclestone, lots of great names in there. But one thing that I wanted to focus in a little bit is you've had a storied racing career, but you're also one of the first Americans to take a leadership role in Formula One.
Yeah.
Can you give me a sense, what was it like? Because it's a brand that's still relatively new to the U.S. We've got a Netflix series, but what was it like when you first got in there as an American? Is it culturally quite different?
It definitely wasn't, but that was more when I was racing.
Yeah.
Now I've been
Sure.
in Europe and England for so long.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
You've
settled in. But
acclimatized, yeah.
when I first moved over, everyone wants to kind of beat each other. It's a pretty nasty environment. It's not very welcoming. And then if you're an American, you're definitely on the outside looking in. So that was very tough. And as you know from the book, Richard Dean, a Brit, kind of took me under his wing. And I think without Richard supporting me, I would have kind of never kind of stayed in England. So he kind of taught me the ropes of racing and introduced me to everyone. And it was difficult. Now I'm definitely kind of part of the furniture, but I do kind of feel like I represent America in F1 to a certain extent, and I like that because I'm obviously proud of my roots, and it's such a cool sport. And because it's a global sport, it's got a very, the Italians and the Brits and the French, and so kind of to make sure America's represented, because it's not from a driver point of view.
Sure.
And I'm the only American team boss to my knowledge. I'm thinking out loud as I say that, but that's the case. So I think it's kind of cool to kind of help represent America in Formula One.
How do you think you draw in that American audience that, like Diane said, is used to NASCAR? How do you adapt what you do?
I think the sport's come a long way. I think about the first time I was introduced to Formula One was 1981 at the Long Beach Grand Prix. I met my first racing driver, Eddie Cheever, who was he's American, a Formula One driver. I remember the cars. I remember the whole experience, and that has stuck with me to this day. I remember what grandstand I was in. And so that impact that it's left on me is the impact that I hope that myself and our drivers and McLaren leave on, the other 10-year-old Zach Browns that might be coming to a Formula One race for the first time and getting their experience. And I think what happened when Liberty acquired the sport, we're a very exclusive sport, look, don't touch, and Liberty brought a new way of thinking. And so when Netflix came out, two of the top teams didn't even participate year one because we don't show anyone behind the scenes what's going on. And that kind of bit them because all their sponsors and fans were like, what are you doing? This thing's the world's greatest show. Why aren't you in it? And it was like, politics and money and all sorts of stuff. That was kind of old school thinking. And so I think Netflix and Liberty turned our sport from an exclusive sport to an inclusive sport. It's always been an awesome sport. I've loved it forever, but people didn't necessarily understand or they couldn't feel engaged with it. And now in this modern day era where everything used to be about awareness, but now it's all about engagement, I think we figured out how to let people in the tent and how to engage with the sport. And some want to engage with the drivers, some want to engage with the team, some love the technology, some love the politics. So there's so many different ways to enjoy Formula One, and then we're a very fan-first racing team. We're all about our fans, starting with going back to our iconic papaya. That's because that's what the fans said they wanted. And I remember one of the old school, if you'd like, people saying to me, we only did that because that's what the fans want. And I was like, is that kind of a trick question?
Yeah,
That's exactly
shouldn't
why
they
we
want
did
that?
it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the fans want.
Right.
And we're in the sport and entertainment business. And that's what our fans want. So let's give our fans what they want. And the sport's just totally evolved from here.
You know, one of the things, we have a lot of leaders come in and talk about the need for servant leadership, followership. The adrenaline, both of how you lead, the nature of the sport. I mean, you've got drivers that compete with each other, not just for the team. How important is that sort of adrenaline, aggression, speed as a way of managing, as a way of getting things done?
I think it's critical to what we do.
We don't talk about it that much for, people in leadership roles.
Yeah, we, there's obviously the racing car, and we're constantly developing the racing car, but we're fighting for talent, we're fighting for drivers, we're fighting for engineers, we're fighting for sponsors, we're fighting for fans. So everything's a competition in Formula One, and speed, part of winning is getting there first, whether that's on the track or off the track. And so I think that competitive nature, I love doing deals, and the competition, and our competition's amazing. As I say, the worst team in Formula One is really good. So the competition bar is very high. There's only 10 teams, soon to be 11 teams. And that competition, I hate to lose. We hate to lose. And so that keeps us very motivated.
So I think you're dealing with a lot of big personalities day in and day out, not just, your team, the people you talked about you hire, but also the drivers. And Diane hinted, I think that dynamic between the drivers is so interesting, where they're both teammates and competitors. How do you, as a boss, manage that? Manage to
Insights on Oscar and Lando?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we're very fortunate to have Lando and Oscar. Not only are they two of the fastest racing drivers in the world, they're two of the nicest guys in the world, but they're also killers when they put their helmet on. So total transparency, treating them equally, fairly, giving them equal opportunity to race each other. And most of the time, competitors in the same team, it ends up in tears. We've got 7 races to go, so far so good. But we're on top of it. It's the elephant in the room. We talk about it. We don't shy away from it. People say, "Are you're nervous?" No, it's a challenge, but it's actually a fun challenge, and we're determined to get it right. And so far, they've had some on-track incidents, but they put their hand up. Hey, I got it wrong, or this happened, and so. We want to put them in a position where hopefully we can get the constructors wrapped up here shortly. We're in a pretty good spot. But we just want the drivers, we want to give them an equal opportunity and let the best driver win. I think if you look at some of the other drivers on the grid, as awesome as they maybe wouldn't have that same chemistry with the team. So when we're selecting our drivers and our people...
You do like a chemistry test?
100%.
Really? Just like Hollywood?
It's like, well, speaking of Hollywood, I'd be remiss not to mention one of my favorite people to interview, which is Gene Simmons, who is a friend of yours. Okay, so KISS. What have you learned from Gene Simmons? And I know your dad was a musician, but give me some sense, just a little bit of lessons from him.
So... he's unbelievable with fans. I mean, he's a very distinctive individual, but, I've spent a good amount of time with him, and he's all about brand. If you think about how long that brand has been going, he's all about licensing, marketing, their image. They have a certain image, and he's extremely warm to people. When you walk through an airport with him, you can tell when someone recognizes him. He'll go up to him. He kind of sends off an aura of, I'm very approachable. I've never seen him be rude to anyone.
Very worthy of Kennedy Center honors. I was kind of pleased when I saw KISS, actually.
And what's interesting is, people that don't know him might, have a certain image of him, but, he is literally a rock star. So there is that, I got to kind of be a rock star, but he's an unbelievable business person. One of the things he said to me was, never show up late to a meeting. So like if you have a meeting with him, he's always 5 minutes early. He speaks 7 different languages. He is very intelligent. He knows exactly what he's doing. And when he kind of gets into the shock and awe, that's very deliberate. And he's a rock star, and he can do things that some of us can't do, because that's part of his brand and image. So I got a lot of time for him. He's great with kids, loves his racing, and he keeps things simple. Like, he stays on brand and message and repeat. And he's an interesting guy.
All right, well, speaking of behind the scenes stories, you had teased when we first started some of these exciting stories that are in your book. What is your favorite one, or one you want to share with us that you think is super unusual?
Definitely a handful of them. Probably my favorite one is Mickey Mantle. I'm a huge baseball guy. I got that from my mom. My mom was from Brooklyn, is from Brooklyn, and a big Yankees fan. And I wanted to be a baseball player before racing. But in order to be on the high school baseball team, you kind of need to go to high school. So that kind of killed the baseball career.
Yep,
but that was
fair.
my first love, and kind of actually still is. Went to the Yankee game last night. And
You got a Mets fan over here, but I will forgive you for
yeah,
saying
I'm
that.
actually a Cardinals guy.
Oh, okay,
I'm
all right.
actually
And
a
that's
Cardinals
fine.
guy.
I'm a
You're
Yankee
good then.
person. Good.
And so I read in the TV guide, that's how long ago that was, that Mickey Mantle played golf at Preston Trails Country Club in Texas. So I just started calling Preston Trails Country Club. I'm 12, 13 years old. I know nothing about golf. I have no appreciation for how grumpy you would be if you were called in off. So 2 weeks go by, Mickey Mantle. And finally they go, hold on. Oh my God, I'm going to talk to Mickey Mantle. It takes about 15 minutes. So they've called him off the golf course. They must have thought it was his son or someone based on the pitch of my voice. Picks up the phone. Is this Mickey Mantle? And he chewed me out like there was no tomorrow and hung up the phone. So I go in my room and I'm crying my eyes out. My mom comes in, tell her the story. She disappears for 30 minutes, comes back in and says, pack your bags. We're going to Dallas tomorrow to hang out with Mickey Mantle. She called him back, explained to him, you just
Said you're a jerk,
Yeah.
Mickey.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what she said, but it was probably along those lines. He thought it was a prank call. Said, "You bring your kids here. I'll spend half a day with them," which was a really cool
There's
story.
a life
Wow.
lesson in that. I'm not sure if stalking is the lesson.
Stalking,
since,
yeah,
since
but,
we're talking about Netflix shows and you get a lot of fandom now that's increased.
Yeah, it was.
we wanna glean anything from that?
It was young, well-intentioned stalking, but it probably was in the stalking category. Now
That's
that I never
right.
really thought about it that way.
Well, no,
I viewed it more as the start of my sales
I
career.
know,
There you go.
I know.
Find out some piece of data and figure out how to get in there. So I put it down to my sales career.
But you do mention, and I think it's something that you mentioned a little bit about, almost with, you don't have to go to get an MBA to do what you do. There's this school of life, there's experience. I am curious if you think there's just a formative experience as well you've had as a leader, and we don't have to go back to when you're a kid. I think you've got lots of stories. Jackie Stewart comes to mind. I'm Scottish, so
Yep.
I have a little bit 10 points for him. What are some of the other experiences you think that have shaped you that really are lessons you now want to convey to the next crop coming up?
Probably all the mistakes.
Oh, good. Give us one of your biggest mistakes.
I've made a lot of
Good.
mistakes over the years.
Congratulations.
I think I know, I used to be terrified of kind of making that difficult phone call. But what I figured out early on is you're going to have to make it eventually, and the longer you wait, the bigger the fire
You're
gets.
fired kind of thing?
No, I've never been fired. Oh no, that's not true. I got booted
No, but telling
once.
other people they're fired. That's
Fired.
yeah.
My first employee, I was kind of tormented for a week in my own mind, having difficult conversations. I had a sponsor which I wrote about. So it was a client, and it was non-exclusive, and I landed a bigger deal with a competitor, which was totally cool. But I didn't want to make the phone call and give them a heads up, and I kind of hoped they just maybe won't
Wouldn't
find
notice.
out.
Yeah.
And it took them about 2 minutes because I was like, "Oh yeah, competitors follow competitors' press announcements," and the CMO, rightfully so, lit me up. And he was spot on. He's like, "You didn't call me because these guys are probably spending more money with you, and you were too chicken." And it was like, yeah, that's pretty much exactly what happened. So you got to if you got to have a difficult conversation, just be real, be honest, pick up the phone, have the difficult conversation, because the fire doesn't put itself out, and the fire just gets bigger. So I think, who likes to have difficult conversations? Nothing
Yeah,
that's enjoyable,
exactly
but I think as you mature as a business person, you realize hey, that's part of business, and people are actually respectful of picking up the phone going, hey, you may not love what I'm about ready to tell you, but, and then at least people go, you know what, they shot me straight. So I think hiding early on from difficult conversations, because no one likes to have them, but you need to have them.
Well, speaking of difficult conversations, you've talked before about how you instituted this no blame culture, which I think is really great because that's a trap a lot of people fall into. But what do you do when you have someone who is underperforming, be it
Blame
a
it.
driver, or a team member?
Yeah.
Blame, fire.
That's the difficult phone
But
call.
like, what's your threshold for making that decision?
So I always kind of say around the factory, mistakes are okay, just don't make the same one twice. So everyone kind of gets a free pass, as long as it was a honest mistake. They were trying, I've as I mentioned, I've made 1,000 mistakes and I've learned from all those. So I'm okay with mistakes, just learn from them. So kind of don't make stupid mistakes, don't hide from things, put your hand up, so, we all get things wrong. And I remember when we started to make progress on that at McLaren this would have been 5-6 years ago. You bring different rear wings and configurations to the racetrack. And this was in the Russia race. And we brought the wrong rear wing and someone put their hand up on Friday. And we were terrible on Friday. I think we brought the wrong rear wing. And we got the right rear wing there on Saturday and we went on and I think we qualified 7th, finished 5th. It was a good race. Mm-hmm. I think the older culture, and I don't mean that from an age standpoint, but kind of
days of yore.
Would have gone, let's just kind of not raise our hand. We'll all kind of know and we'll kind of blame everyone else and we'll figure it out on Monday. Yeah. But the fact that someone put up their hand gave us a chance to fix it. And it was the difference between having a terrible weekend and a good weekend. And so I applaud that. Now, if you bring the wrong wing again, it's okay, well, what's going on here? Right. So I think that's about, and then mentoring people, understanding when a mistake happens, why did it happen? Niki Lauda, 3-time world champion. I remember when he won one of his big awards, he said, I learned way more from losing than I did winning. So losing's okay. Making mistakes are okay. Just learn from it because it makes you smarter. When we won...
Zach Brown says losing is okay. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I don't like it, but it
Well,
does
but
it
it's
does
allowed.
happen. But I remember, Spain this year, we've had a lot of 1-2s this year. And in our debrief, we start with what could we have done better. So even though we finished 1st and 2nd, we didn't go, that was a perfect weekend, because it wasn't. There were 7-8 items in there that could have gone wrong. So that's where we start. And in racing, probably in life, there's no such thing as the perfect race car, the perfect lap, the perfect weekend, but you're chasing perfection. So as long as you can get everyone going, God, they always seem to be critical. We just finished 1st and 2nd, and we're starting this meeting talking about the 7 things we did wrong. Then we finished 1st and 2nd. It's like, well, don't take it personally. We're just trying to improve. So if you can get everyone in that mindset, then you're constantly driving forward.
Now, I know obviously technology can always improve, but it's such a big component of the sport. And I'm sure you're always looking at what the competitors are doing in terms of what comes forward. Where do you see, are there particular opportunities? Because I often wonder at what point do you max out, which you never do, but what the next iteration of car will be. Is it AI? Is AI making a big difference? Is it the materials? I mean, what do you watch for? Because
it's kind of all the above. In our sport, 2% separates the best from the worst. So we're working on the smallest marginal gain. So it's very rarely that. And it's a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there, so we're always trying to, whether it's new materials, as soon as something's done, you can always improve on it. You can make it lighter, more durable, faster, more downforce, whatever the case may be. So sometimes you strike gold and you develop. Other times you get stuck, and it doesn't mean that you've perfected it, and that's why you can't make it better. You've done a really good job, but you can always make it a little bit better. And so we're in the business of milliseconds. It's amazing the amount of work we put into.
That's the name of your book, right?
Well, that's 7/10 of a second.
7/10 of a second. We're talking milliseconds now. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
we're down,
That's
we're down
forever.
in the technical
7/10.
conversation.
And
Shame on me.
And where that comes from, and it's amazing, is 24 races last year. We won the Constructors' Championship, the first time in 26 years, and had the last pit stop been 7/10 of a second slower than Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari would have been in our DRS. It's pretty hard to defend against DRS. probably would have passed Lando. Whether Lando would have got him back or not, we'll never know, because fortunately we don't need to find out. But after 24 races and hundreds of millions of dollars spent and 1,400 people working on race cars, it came down to a 2-second pit stop. Had it been a 2.7-second pit stop, Carlos is in our DRS when Lando comes out of the pits, and maybe we don't win the championship, because had we not won the race, we would have lost the championship. So it's amazing how
Guy in the
7/10
pit
of a
hiccups
I
and
would
you've
not
lost
want
the
to be in pit
championship.
lane.
I
I would
yeah.
not want to be on that race car.
I'm curious about your mindset about where to invest, because, there's the current cost cap. So I'm curious about whether, do you have this choice of investing in race car performance and then versus investment in, the brand, fan engagement, Netflix series, all these other things you have going on, other series besides F1. How do you balance that, and has the balance shifted over time?
It has. In the cost cap, certain items are not in, so things like brand and marketing. So it's intended to be more pure sporting to balance the playing field, which last year there were 7 different winners, multiple races, 4 different teams. That's kind of unheard of. So the cost cap has definitely worked. So within the cost cap, we have to figure out where best to spend efficiently, because before, when there wasn't a cost cap, you could just you could spend your way out of problems. Now, if you're going to develop 4 front wings, you don't want to develop 5 to get to 4. You want to do 4, because that 5th one's a waste of money. In the good old days, you develop 10 front wings to find the 4 that you wanted, and you just threw the other 6 away. But everything drives performance on the race car. So, we have to have great fans. So that's our brand team, because without fans, there's no McLaren Formula One. Then you got your commercial team that needs to monetize the fans with your sponsors. Without sponsors, we can't afford to go racing. It's all about culture and people. So you have to have an awesome HR department. Now you got to work with your finance department on how you're going to spend the resources that you have. And then you have the racing team itself. So when you kind of look at this circle of life inside McLaren, you have to be firing on all cylinders, because if you don't have a fan base, you're not going to find sponsors, which means you're not going to be able to pay for driver, et cetera, et cetera. So everyone in our organization understands that they're putting performance on the race car, whether they're directly putting performance on the race car or indirectly putting performance on the race car.
I want to just capture what it's like being behind the wheel, because you've had, first of all, I don't know if you miss it. I mean,
I do miss it.
But what was it like, even that moment when you got into the kart, and just give us some sense of just the rush, because there aren't many sports like F1 that are just so visceral.
Everything's happening very quick.
Yeah.
So it teaches you decision making. Teaches you, I find so many similarities between being a racing driver and a CEO. So if you think about what a racing driver does, it's a lot of instinct, it's a lot of data, it's a lot of trusting your engineers, it's being a great listener, it's being a great communicator, because there's times you've got to tell your engineers what you need, and then there's a lot of times the engineers are telling you what you need to do. You need to have a tremendous amount of trust. It's kind of life or death in the race car, so you need to trust everyone around your team. You need to understand risk versus reward. So all those are all those things I just mentioned that apply to a racing driver also apply to being a CEO. Sir Jackie Stewart, one of the things he always said to me is, and he loved hiring people out of the military for his office. And he said, I like people in the military because they know how to take orders and they know how to give orders. And I very much, as a leader, there's times to lead, but also good leaders follow. And I view myself that I work for the racing team. The racing team doesn't work for me. So my job is to empower people, give them the tools, the resources, the guidance that they need. But the minute I'm designing a race car, we're going to be in trouble.
Well, speaking of risks as a leader, I have heard that you went so far to have tattoos on your body. Tell me about this, because
they're not visible for those who are listening to this.
Will you get a tattoo of leadership next?
I am done with tattoos.
Okay, all right.
So the story behind the tattoos were Daniel Ricciardo had quite a few tattoos, and Sky had a charity where each team boss nominated a team boss and had to do something that they were scared of, and I am terrified of needles. I'm the last person that I ever thought would get a tattoo. Yeah. But Daniel won us my first race, our first race in quite some time. I thought, all right, we all kind of don't want to be buried with something that's like, oh, I regret, the ex-girlfriend or whatever the case may be. And I was like, no, I'm never going to not want to remember my first race. So I did that. And then when Lando won his first race, so I had each son, Max and McGuire, at each race. One was a Miami, one was a Monza. So I've kind of turned what was a Daniel tattoo into a father-son thing.
It's just like hieroglyphics. You could end up with a lot of tattoos if you continue your winning streak.
Yeah, no, I'm done because they do hurt. I remember when I went in and I said to the tattoo artist, I was like, does it hurt? And she was like, oh, yeah. And I was like, what's it feel like? It's like, it feels like a cat clawing you. And I was like,
That seems like not that bad, though.
yeah, well, I'm terrified of needles, but actually a cat clawing you is, it was all mental.
Claw.
I can't even do blood draws.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So
very
my
funny.
needles freak me out.
I love that. Listen, I do want to ask, you get asked a lot of questions, and there's a lot of attention, spotlight on this sport. What questions do you think you don't get asked enough, or you wish you were asked more often? Even just the genesis of this book. I mean, tell me more about what you think is underappreciated about the sport.
I think, and it kind of is what it is, we've got awesome fans. Well, we have some less
not
awesome
so,
fans.
Come on, but yeah.
And I appreciate how passionate everyone is about the sport, but the sport is so complicated, and there's so much data, and there's so much I wish we could talk about. But maybe a frustrating thing, if you'd like, is when people make comments about, and they're really uninformed. And I don't mind the booing and cheering, but we've all seen on social media how crazy some people get, and you sit there and you go, that's a father or a son or a mother or a daughter, and you should see some of the
Cool
stuff
world.
that we all get. That's insane. I'd love to be able to respond, but you're never going to win that conversation.
No one's ever won on social media.
But I wish we could take more time and explain, here's what happened and why. But there's just not enough hours in the day, and then there's going to be people that don't get it, don't want to get it. But that would be nice, as if we could explain, here's why we made that decision. And oh, by the way, we do get it wrong. So no, we've never put up our hand and said we've done it perfectly, but we are human, and we are trying, and we're great people towards our drivers and our team. And we've got a strong, a lot of people are very appreciative of us letting our two drivers race. A lot of teams wouldn't do that. And so that would be something I wish that we could talk about a little bit more, but I think that would take all day.
Yeah, I wish we had all day too. But
I do too. But just very quick last, what brings you the most joy? Let's end on an up note. And say winning. You cannot say winning.
Can't say winning.
No.
It's the team atmosphere, which, whether we're winning or losing, the culture that everyone has created at McLaren is awesome. So when we have a bad weekend like we did in Baku, we deal with it.
You feel it.
We definitely feel it. But Andrea, our team principal, we have a phrase: don't eat the poison biscuits, because we're all trying to do politics with other teams, and so the bond that we have in our racing team, that feels really special.
Great. A family.
Nice.
Thanks
Yeah.
for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you for having me.